What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about OnyxCoin today, XCN, USD. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let's get into it. It is the 4th day of June. Here we are at about 1.57 cents, 9 hours, 42 minutes left in the day. It's looking like they were trying, whoever they are, trying to trap us, right? But we didn't fall for it. No. Maybe some of you did. I don't know. I don't blame you. That was a nice move. That was a nice little move with some good volume too. We don't have the volume on this chart, but that's okay. Just trust when I tell you there was some good volume there. I mean, that was a nice move, and we did that same move in 1 hour, what took 3 hours over here. So definitely impressive, but unfortunately it was all for naught because we're back down here anyways, right? So it's very likely at this point, I think it was harder to acknowledge up here, but it's a lot easier to acknowledge down here that we probably do go below this low, right? Even still, when we were up here, we still had our suspicions that we would see something probably exactly like this. 1.57 cents now. You're at the area to find support. Sometimes with moves like this, treat it like a blemish, and really you're just maintaining this kind of structure, and you'll have your blemishes to the downside and to the upside, whatever, but you're just mainly going to be in this structure. That can happen. But with the perceived outcome that Bitcoin's going to have moving down, with the RSI looking as bearish as it does, I would actually expect that you go lower. Yes, there's some kind of trend line you could draw here, but I don't think that it's respecting that. I think that this is just an incomplete drop. Most of the time, in the RSI, you do find support either at the 40 or at the oversold zone, or in the oversold zone, or somewhere in between. But here, you don't really have any areas where you found support, right? They're all down here below the 40 or near the oversold zone, if anything. I would think that you go lower. Looking at this RSI, zooming out, speaking of trends with blemishes, it's as if you had an uptrend here, higher lows, higher highs, right? And you had a blemish to the downside. You might be breaking out to the downside now. The difference between here and here is that you've actually interacted with the overbought zone. Uptrends tend to end once you interact with the overbought zone or get bearish divergence. I do think that you're going to move lower. Being on the 1 hour time frame, I would suspect that by the end of the day we're at lower prices. Going into tomorrow, we're probably heading for lower prices. Looking at the 4 hour time frame, rejecting the 60, probably going to go down to the 40, if not lower. And if we do go, I would think at least to the 40 from here, that would probably take us back down to about 1.5 cents, just above there. We're basically there now, but likely we're going to break through the 40, go into the oversold zone yet again. We might even form a higher low, right? Some kind of higher low here, something like that, where we go down just into the oversold zone, something like that. And with that, I would think that we see a slightly lower low than this. We will form some bullish divergence, and then we will look to recover. Where are we going to go? Because the expectation, if we are to find support down in this area in the RSI, like I was saying, if we're to go down here, we can't drop too much, right? If we're going to find a higher low, I mean, we probably drop below this low, but we're not going to see some kind of huge deficit that just takes us down to the dumps. Where are we going to go? Well, I'm glad you asked. And a lot of you should know this by now, right? A lot of you should know where we're going to go by now. Looking at this on a daily time frame, we zoom out, just a little bit lower than that low is this 0.5 right there at 1.43 cents. I would bet that if we drop down there, if we go down to here, maybe we wick off of this area and then we close like right here, I would bet our RSI is going to be right there, right at that higher low level to give us bullish divergence. I didn't draw it properly, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? I would bet that would be it. We'd start to have some chop probably, and then we'd start to recover going into next week probably is what my expectation would be. So a little bit more boring sideways downness today and tomorrow, and maybe even going into the weekend, right? Is today Thursday? No, today's Wednesday. Today, tomorrow, the next day, whatever. I mean, it is possible that we could start moving up as early as this week, but I'm not expecting much out of this week. I think it's going to be next week that we move up. We'll probably form our low over the coming days, today or tomorrow. Probably tomorrow, if not the next day. And then spend the weekend configuring ourselves. Next week, we'll start to recover. Going into the middle of the month, mid-month, we should be breaking out of this zone and reaching for 5.5 cents or higher. And then ultimately getting to prices that are at 26 to 32 cents, man. That's the expectation. Somebody asked me to take a more bearish perspective on OnyxCoin. And I've had people ask this before because I'm always bullish on it, right? I mean, even in the short term, I'm bearish. We always talk about the bullish upside. They're asking me to take a more conservative approach whenever it comes to the BTC chart specifically. So So let's do that. And I've done this before. I don't know if it was at the request. I know somebody's asked me to do a bearish video on OnyxCoin, and we did that before too, but this is a little different, I suppose, specific to the Bitcoin price. You know, my assumption is that here we are in some kind of massive bull flag, right? The measure move would take us all the way up to here, where we would find resistance. I'm not just drawing that off of my eyes. I've drawn this enough to know that that's essentially right here, maybe even just below where I drew that line. That's right at the base of this wick here. That's where the measure move takes you. It's perfect, right? And it makes a lot of sense through the analysis that we've done, that if you found resistance right here at this base, you found resistance right here at the base of this consolidation phase, this whole move down, you only had one consolidation phase that lasted for a month or longer. That was this one right here, and you stopped right at the base of that range. There's no coincidence to that, right? You didn't stop in the middle of nowhere. You stopped at the base of this consolidation area right here for 5 weeks. The measure move of this takes you to the next base of the only other consolidation area you had in between the top and the bottom here, right? What if you stop somewhere lower? And so that's my reasoning for why I think we're going to go here, at least here, if not above here, for OnyxCoin versus BTC. And we've input what the price of OnyxCoin to BTC would be. Even at Bitcoin's current valuation, OnyxCoin would be worth 20 cents and likely more. Because if OnyxCoin grows, Bitcoin's going to grow too. Or maybe I should rephrase it. If Bitcoin's growing, OnyxCoin grows more, right? Something like that, whatever. You would expect then that OnyxCoin is above 20 cents. But what if we never get here? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm terribly, dramatically wrong? Where could we go? Well, there's a couple scenarios, right? Maybe OnyxCoin, maybe you only get a double top. Maybe. And that would be terrible, but maybe. I doubt it. I really doubt that in the wake of something like this, that you're just going to stop here. But it could happen. We're trying to be pessimistic on this one. So this isn't my like realistic analysis, I would say, taking the bearish side right now. Even if I was bearish, I feel like I'd be grasping at straws with just this concept right here, that we'd find resistance here, but we'll input that number. And then maybe if we're keeping it to this bearish sentiment, right, this high. Something in between both of these levels, but not past them is what I would guess, right? Maybe at the highest, the opening price, but that doesn't have any significance. It doesn't make sense to me. Let's see if we can find significance on some fibs real quick for these areas. High to low here. Okay, that second one is at least in the golden ratio zone, so there we can at least make sense out of it. But this first one, again, just doesn't make a lot of sense. But let's do it. Let's just see if I was terribly wrong, if OnyxCoin was worse than I imagined it to be, what's the realistic quote-unquote price action we could expect? Well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros, 4, 7, 3, 5. 6 zeros, 4, 7, 3, 5. Right? If we multiply that by Bitcoin's perceived outcome, which if we're going to be bearish on OnyxCoin, let's be bearish on Bitcoin too. Maybe it doesn't go to 180 to 190K, but maybe it goes to like 140K instead. And that's all we get is 140K. Gives us a 6.6 cent price, which again, I have a hard time imagining that we would stop anywhere around there. We'd probably go dramatically higher, but that is also taking into consideration that we stop at the exact same place we stop. We double top here, which is probably not going to happen. There's nothing that makes sense of it from the fibs. We've been consolidating in this area already. When we break out, we're probably going to get some separation that's very akin to this here, and I would think that we go all the way up to this zone, but taking that into consideration, maybe. Maybe we stop at 6 cents. What if Bitcoin does go to the areas that I think it's going to go to? Let's say we go to 180K. Then 8.5 cents. And 8.5 cents makes a lot more sense than 6 cents or whatever, because from a high to a low. No, I'm sorry. I got the wrong high to low. My bad. Hold on. From a high to a low here in the US dollar price, high to a low, at least we get to the 1272. That at least has some kind of sensible rationality to it. But I still don't think this area is fair, right? You're absurdly pessimistic. If that's all you got, even if that's all you got, there's really no argument that you can make that OnyxCoin would see any kind of price that's less than 8 cents, right? Because I highly doubt Bitcoin stops at 140K. I highly doubt OnyxCoin stops here. 8.5 cents. That's a suitable minimum target, right? I feel like that 6.6 cents is just too pessimistic. This is suitable if you're being pessimistic still, but let's move on. Let's do 508189. 5 zeros, 818, or no, I'm sorry, 6 zeros. 8189. 5 zeros would take us a lot higher. Did I do that right? 3, yeah, there's 6 zeros. Times the same price. Let's do 140K. Takes us to 11 cents. Now we're getting somewhere that makes a little bit more sense at least, but for 140K for Bitcoin, I just don't see that happening, right? This, I will admit, in my worst nightmares, I do have worries and concerns that we could stop here. So, I mean, this is a more realistic, pessimistic outcome. Okay, it absolutely is. And on that pessimistic outcome, with a pessimistic Bitcoin price, we still get to 11.4 cents. And 11.4 cents is just above this 1414. Normally, if you stop somewhere at the 1414, you do stop just above it, not below it or at it. So that makes sense too. We're making more sense as we go higher. Surprise, surprise. Let's see. Now, if we were to do 180K, because I assume Bitcoin probably does go to 180. It probably even goes just above 180. But I don't assume that they top off at the same time. So what would the price be there? 14.7 cents, yeah. That's pretty damn close to 15.7 cents. I would think that OnyxCoin then, you know, my argument there would be maybe if you were to top off at this area, maybe you top off just a little bit higher, like you wick above it, but you close down here, right? So that ultimately you can get a price that's a little bit higher than this to 15.7 cents. That's what I'd make sense. But even then, it wouldn't make sense to stop here at 14.7, right below the golden ratio. It wouldn't make sense. Even making sense out of these more pessimistic targets, it just doesn't seem right. And I mean, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but really, realistically, in my opinion, and we'll finish up with this, just going back to why I expect we're going to go to 26 to 32 cents. You know, from a low to a high here, this is our bull flag on the Bitcoin pair. I know I keep jumping back between the BTC pair and the USD pair. I hope you can differentiate the two, but I know they look similar. But here's our measure move up here. That's at 50188, right? We're not even going to add all of it. I won't add the extra numbers after that. We multiply that by 140K. We're getting 26 cents. That's the minimum target. 26 cents right here. If you break above 15.7 cents, you're not stopping anywhere until you get to 26 cents. And that makes sense. I don't feel like I'm reaching for this. Bull flag, measure move, hits right there. We stopped at the base of this consolidation phase. If we break out and we go higher, we'll probably see the base of the next consolidation phase as resistance or more, right? Our weekly RSI looks really good, actually. We're in a good area to bounce from here. Right at the 50, right at this same area that we've bounced from before, that we found resistance before. We kind of had a double top here. Maybe we have a double bottom here, and then we start to move up. I really do think that we will. You know, that's just at 140K. If Bitcoin was at 180K and OnyxCoin tops off at the same time, we get something that's a little bit closer to 32 cent price, right? 34 cents right there. And I assume OnyxCoin will top off before Bitcoin's at 180K, but it just makes sense, right? 33.8 cents. I mean, there's no coincidence. There's no coincidence that the same zone I'm expecting for Bitcoin to go to gives us the same minimums and maximums that we're expecting OnyxCoin to go to, right? And then this chart lines up with that, right? I'm not just putting lines there randomly and saying, it's going to go here. Trust me, this is where it's going to go. And then we do all the math. And I'm like, see, and this is why it'll go here. No, I'm saying it's going to go here because of this and this and this. And then we do the math and we say, this is why it's going to go here. Not why it's going to go. I hope that makes sense. I don't know, man. I'm not crazy. You're crazy. I feel like I'm talking like a crazy person. But OnyxCoin here at 1.57 cents. Not impressed. Definitely going to go a little bit lower from here. Probably down just below this low. We'll find support and then we'll be on our path ultimately to some pretty rad prices, you guys. I don't think we'll see 33 cents, but something between 26 and 32 I'm game for. I definitely believe we'll get there. I got nothing else. Hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.